The storm rolled across the Texas plains like a dark beast, shaking the old wooden walls of the Caldwell Ranch. Inside the small bunkhouse, a young woman named Emma stood with her hands pressed against her chest, trying to steady her breath. She had run from the life she knew, from a house full of shouting and fear, and from a man her uncle tried to force her to marry. She had nowhere else to go. The only shelter she found was at the ranch of a quiet cowboy named Luke. Luke was the kind of man people trusted. He spoke little, worked hard, and never raised his voice at anyone. When he found Emma shivering outside the barn 2 nights ago, he did not ask questions. He gave her warm food, fresh clothes, and a place to sleep. He knew she was hiding from something dangerous, but he waited for her to speak first. Have you ever been so afraid of men that the idea of being touched felt like violence? Have you ever wondered if safety and desire could ever exist in the same moment? Tonight, the wind was loud, but Emma's heartbeat felt louder. She stood in the bunkhouse doorway and looked at Luke as he removed his boots and set them by the wall. She could not understand why he was so patient with her. No man had ever treated her gently before. Luke glanced over his shoulder when he sensed her watching. His eyes were warm like amber in lamplight. He did not step toward her. He did not rush her. He simply said, "Storm's getting worse. You all right?" Emma nodded, though her hands trembled. She had a fear inside her that she carried since childhood, a fear born from the way men in her world acted when they wanted something. But Luke was different. He waited for her. He respected every inch of space between them. Still, she stood there holding something heavy inside her chest. "I don't want to be alone tonight," she said softly. Luke stood very still, his breath slowed. He understood the weight in her voice, the way her eyes lowered to the floor. He shook his head gently and walked closer, but not too close. "Emma," he said, "you don't owe me anything. Not one thing. You hear me?" She looked up. Her eyes glistened. "I know. That's why I'm here." A crack of thunder shook the walls. Emma flinched, but Luke didn't move. He held himself steady, giving her a chance to come closer, only if she wanted to. Emma took a step, then another. She stopped a few feet from him, her hands cold, her breath uneven. "Luke," she whispered, I've never been with anyone, but I want to trust someone, even if I don't know how." His face softened, but he did not reach for her. He knew pushing her, even with kindness, could break something inside her. "You don't have to trust me tonight," he told her, voice low and steady. "You don't have to trust me ever. I'm just trying to keep you safe till you figure out where you want to go." Tears filled her eyes because she had never heard words like that from a man. Words without demand. Words without a price. "I want to stay," she said, "and I want to be near you tonight. I just don't know how to stop being scared." Luke finally stepped close enough to touch her, but he didn't. He raised his hand slowly, giving her time to step back if she wished. She didn't. He rested his palm lightly against her cheek. She closed her eyes. "You want the truth," he said. "I'm scared too." Her eyes opened. I care about doing right by you," he said. "And when a man cares, he feels things deep. Fear can grow there too." Emma felt something warm for the first time in days, something she thought she had lost. Safety. He led her to sit by the small fire that burned in the stove. They sat close, but not touching. She wrapped a blanket around herself, and Luke handed her a cup of warm tea he had brewed earlier. The wind outside howled like a wild animal, but the small room felt calm. Emma let herself breathe again. "Luke," she said quietly, "can I ask you one thing? Anything. If I stayed, if I chose to give you my first night, would you wait until I wasn't afraid?" Luke looked at her with a softness that almost broke her. "I'd wait my whole life if that's what you needed." The words hit her heart like a warm light. No man had ever given her time. No man had ever offered patience instead of pressure. A tear slid down her cheek. Luke reached up and wiped it gently with the back of his knuckle. Emma leaned her head against his shoulder. For the first time in years, she felt safe enough to close her eyes. And as the storm raged outside, something new began inside her. Not love yet, not trust yet, but the start of something that felt like both. She did not know the danger that was coming for her. She did not know her past would soon catch up with her. She did not know Luke would risk everything for her before the week was over. But tonight, she rested beside the cowboy who waited, and for the first time in her life, she was not afraid. Do you believe that the greatest romance begins not with passion but with patience? That the most powerful thing a man can say isn't, "I want you," but "I'll wait for you"? Morning came quiet after the long storm. The sun stretched over the plains, lighting up the wet grass, and the broken clouds drifting across a pale sky. Emma woke on the small bunkhouse bed, wrapped in a warm quilt Luke had left for her. She remembered falling asleep on his shoulder by the fire, and her face warmed at the memory. He had carried her to the bed after she drifted off, letting her rest without waking her. When she stepped outside, Luke was already in the yard, loading hay from the barn. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, and his hands moved steady and strong. He looked like he had been awake for hours. When he saw her, he stopped and gave her a small nod. "Morning, Emma." She nodded back. "Morning." There was something gentle in the way he said her name, something she was still learning to understand. He offered her a plate of biscuits and eggs he had left warming on the stove. She sat across from him at the small table while he ate quietly. She had never known a man who could sit in silence without making her feel small. Luke's silence was calm, not heavy, but the peace did not last long. As they finished breakfast, a horse galloped into the yard. Dust kicked up behind it, and Emma felt her whole body tense. Luke stood slowly and stepped between her and the door. A tall man swung down from the saddle. His coat was wet from the storm, but his face was twisted in anger. His name was Grant Fowler. He was the man Emma's uncle wanted her to marry, a man twice her age, with hands roughened by control, not ranch work. Luke's jaw tightened. He did not move from his place. "Looking for a girl named Emma," Grant said, voice sharp. "She ran off 2 nights ago. Folks say a cowboy found her out by the road." Luke didn't blink. "What's your business with her?" Grant glared. "My business ain't yours." Emma stepped out from behind Luke before fear could stop her. Her hand shook, but she lifted her chin. "I'm not going back with you, Grant." His eyes narrowed. "You don't have a choice." Luke stepped forward, quiet but firm. She said no. That's all the choice needed. Grant looked Luke up and down like he was sizing him for a fight. "What's she to you, cowboy?" Luke's voice was steady. "A woman who deserves to be treated right." Grant spat on the dirt. "You think she belongs with you?" "She belongs where she chooses," Luke said. Grant's anger rose. Her uncle already settled things. "She's promised to me." Emma felt air leave her chest. Luke did not look at her, but his voice grew harder. "A promise forced ain't a promise." Grant stepped close enough that Luke had to stand tall. "You want trouble." Luke didn't flinch. "I want you off my land." Grant stared at him, breathing like a bull ready to charge. But something in Luke's calm eyes made him hesitate. He backed up, furious but uncertain. "This ain't over," he growled. "She's mine by law, and I'll be back with men who make sure she leaves with me." He mounted his horse and rode off, dirt flying behind him. Emma collapsed onto the porch steps, shaking. Luke crouched beside her, placing a steady hand on her back. "You're safe for now," he said, "but he'll try again." Emma buried her face in her hands. Fear rose inside her like a wave. "I don't want to go back," she whispered. "You won't," Luke said. "Not while I'm breathing." She looked at him, eyes full of fear and hope. "Why are you doing this for me?" He held her gaze, without looking away. "Because you deserve someone who stands with you, someone who waits for you, someone who listens when you're scared." Emma felt her heart twist with feelings she had no name for. Luke rose to his feet and held out his hand. "Come inside. We'll figure this out together." Emma placed her hand in his, trusting him more with each breath. But inside her chest, a new fear grew. Grant was coming back, and he wouldn't be coming alone. The next 2 days felt heavy over the ranch. Emma tried to help with the chores, but her hands trembled whenever she heard horse hooves far off in the distance. Luke stayed close, always watching the road, always keeping her within sight, but never crowding her. He worked with a steady calm, but Emma saw the worry hiding behind his quiet eyes. She slept in the bunkhouse at night, though she often woke from bad dreams. Each time she found Luke sitting outside the door, leaning against the wall with his hat tilted down. He never said much, but she knew he stayed awake, just to keep her safe. On the third morning, the danger arrived. Emma was sweeping the porch when she heard the rumble first. Several horses, not just one. Luke stepped out of the barn immediately, wiping his hands on a cloth, his eyes sharp. A line of riders appeared on the ridge beyond the fence. Grant Fowler, 3 men from town, and her uncle. Emma's breath caught. Luke stood in front of her in one clean step. Grant rode forward until he was close enough to see her trembling. "Time to come home, Emma," he said. "Your uncle wants this settled today." Emma's uncle sat stiff in the saddle, his face hard. "This cowboy's filled your head with nonsense. Pack your things." Emma tried to speak, but fear locked her throat. Luke stepped forward. "She's not going anywhere she doesn't choose." Grant barked a laugh and looked at his men. "You gonna fight all 4 of us, cowboy?" Luke didn't look scared. He didn't even look angry. He looked steady. "If I have to." Grant dismounted and started toward Emma. Luke moved faster. He put himself between them like a wall. Grant sneered. "You think she wants you? You think she's worth dying over?" Luke didn't blink. "I think she deserves the right to decide." Grant swung first, a wide, angry punch meant to knock Luke down. But Luke dodged it easily and hit back, with one clean strike that sent Grant to the dust. The other men jumped off their horses. Emma gasped, stepping back, her heart pounding. Luke moved with calm strength, blocking one man's swing, pushing another away, never letting any of them reach Emma. Dust rose around them, boots scraping, fists landing, grunts filling the air. Emma watched with terror and awe. He wasn't fighting for pride. He was fighting for her. Grant pulled a small knife from his boot. Emma froze in shock. "Luke!" she screamed. Luke turned just as Grant lunged. The blade cut across Luke's arm, and blood sprang bright against his skin. Emma cried out, but Luke didn't fall. Instead, he caught Grant's wrist, twisted hard, and the knife dropped to the ground. With a final shove, he sent Grant crashing backward into the dirt. Grant lay there breathing hard, humiliated. Luke stood over him, bleeding but steady. "She isn't yours," he said. "She was never yours." Emma's uncle dismounted slowly. The fight drained out of him. He looked at Emma, really looked at her, and saw something he had ignored for too long, fear in her eyes, and a strength he never allowed her to show. "If you truly want to stay here," he said quietly, "I won't force you home." Grant stared up at him in disbelief. "You can't be serious." Her uncle shook his head. "I won't drag her into a life she's begging to escape." Grant protested again, but the uncle mounted his horse and signaled the other men to follow. None of them wanted another fight with Luke. One by one, they rode away, leaving Grant cursing as he was pulled up onto a horse and taken off the ranch. Silence finally returned. Emma rushed to Luke, tears falling fast. His arm was bleeding, but he gave her a small smile to calm her. "You shouldn't have done that," she said, voice shaking. "I told you," Luke answered. "I keep you safe." She pressed her forehead to his chest, crying in relief. Luke wrapped his good arm around her, holding her gently. "Emma," he said softly, "you don't need to fear anymore." She looked up at him, her voice small but certain. "I'm not afraid now." He brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. "And you can stay here as long as you want." She took a deep breath. "I want to stay with you." Luke's eyes warmed. "Then you stay." That night, the ranch was quiet. Emma sat beside him by the small fire again, but this time she rested her hand over his heart, not out of fear, but out of trust. "Luke," she whispered, "I'm not scared of the first night anymore. Not with you." He held her gently, his touch careful, patient, loving, and she knew she was safe with him, not because he fought for her, but because he waited for her, because he saw her not as a burden or a promise, but as a woman choosing her own life for the first time. Outside, the plains were calm under a wide Texas sky. Inside, Emma finally found the love she once feared. Do you believe that the deepest intimacy begins with respect, not desire? That the man who teaches you not to fear touch is the one who never demands it? This story reminds us that first nights aren't always about passion. Sometimes they're about trust finally overcoming terror, about a patient man who says, "I'll wait," and means it, and about discovering that love feels nothing like fear when it's given freely instead of taken. If this story moved you, subscribe to hear more tales from Texas ranches and patient hearts, stories of women who ran from forced marriages and found men who stood between them and danger, of cowboys who fought not for ownership, but for choice, and of love that grew not from seduction, but from the simple revolutionary act of waiting until fear became trust. Share your thoughts if you believe that the sexiest thing a man can say is, "You don't owe me anything." That real strength is measured in restraint, not conquest, and that the greatest gift isn't a first night. It's the safety to choose, when that night happens,